We have scheduled for DOC transfers, currently 16 males, 2 females with 300 Bs, 17 males with detainers, and 10 males with open cases. The longest wait time on a 300B was received July 31st, and the shortest wait time is from September 25th. Federal inmates in the facility is currently 26, 17 of which are United States Marshal holds, and 9 are federal transfers for Allegheny County Court. Our use of force numbers for September 2023 is 39. And finally, I'd like to announce that LaShawn Davis, the Reentry Service Coordinator, has been named the ACJ Correctional Professional for the month of September, and congratulations to Ms. Davis. I'll pass it on to Deputy Warden Clark to continue the report.
Good evening, Board. Chaplaincy and pre-release. Chaplaincy has begun preparations for the holiday gift-giving event. Gift bags will be assembled in the beginning of December and distributed mid-December. If anyone is interested in making donations, they can visit foundationofhope.org. Discharge and release. The Discharge and Release Center assessed 294 individuals and distributed 64 boxes of Narcan in September. The DRC continues to make referrals to community partners for services and provides resources to assist individuals upon their release. The DRC has updated its drop-in food bank distribution handout and is distributing information about Vote Riders, an organization that assists individuals released from custody in obtaining documents necessary for voting, such as identification, social security cards, and birth certificates. Contact visits. The jail continues to host contact visits for juveniles, incarcerated workers, veterans, and program participants on designated Saturdays throughout the month. For the month of September, a total of 73 incarcerated individuals received contact visits from a total of 157 family members. Residential placement services. Based on orders from the court, residential placement services facilitated the transfer of 67 individuals to alternative housing in September and 31 individuals to substance use treatment programs through the diversion program. The diversion program received 22 new referrals and served a total of 75 participants in September. The Medical Assistance Program assisted a total of 100 individuals with completing medical assistance applications upon release from the jail in the month of September. Reentry services. The following programming continues to be ongoing in the Reentry Center: harm reduction education, batterers intervention, mindfulness and meditation, coping skills and planning through Maya, parenting groups through Amachi and A Child's Place, peace education, Men in the Know, positive relationships, and trauma groups through Pittsburgh Action Against Rape. Amachi recently donated toys and games to the jail to support visits in the jail's visiting area and contact visits, and we thank them for their generosity. These donations offer additional supports to these visits and enable children coming to the jail to have a more positive experience when visiting with their loved ones. Educational services. As we've done in the past, we are working with the County Elections Division to ensure those eligible to vote are able to do so. The housing units have voter registration forms and absentee voter applications that will be collected by the caseworker team. A voter education video has been posted to the tablets to educate the incarcerated population on their right to vote and encourage voter participation. Duquesne University resumed Inside Out classes on September 28th for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic. Inside Out is a program led by Duquesne professor Dr. Norman Conti, and it brings together incarcerated individuals and college students in a classroom environment to discuss crime, justice, and issues of social concern. There are 22 Duquesne University students and 14 jail participants engaged in that program. The jail also continues to add programming for veterans. Mark Huff, Housing Case Manager for the Veterans Leadership Program, held a resource presentation for 28 incarcerated veterans on September 20th. The presentation provided information on programs that are available to veterans, including housing resources, how to apply for housing, and details on guidelines for each program. The Allegheny Intermediate Unit began a pre-apprenticeship class on September 27th. This 4-day-per-week class focuses heavily on developing math skills to prepare students to take the apprenticeship test for trades such as carpentry, electrical, and plumbing. That concludes this month's report for programs. Dr. Brinkman will provide the healthcare services update.
Good evening. For medication-assisted treatment for substance use disorders and expansion of those efforts, our continuation of MAT services include for the month of September that there were 39 individuals prescribed oral naltrexone, with 4 individuals receiving the Vivitrol injection prior to community release. 128 individuals were treated with Suboxone and 22 individuals treated with Sublocade. Of these, 14 patients were transitioned from Suboxone to Sublocade to support their recovery. Methadone continuation services have treated 47 individuals. For Torrance commitments and admissions, during the month of September, 9 patients were admitted and transferred to Torrance State Hospital. 8 patients were committed to Torrance. 11 patients had their commitments to Torrance State Hospital for competency restoration rescinded due to clinical stabilization, which may be the highest number I've seen. Currently, 35 patients are awaiting admission to Torrance State Hospital with the longest wait since June 16th, 2023. Regarding mental health data and those who have been assessed at Tier 4 and 5, in the month of September, 1 individual was identified as Tier 5 in the mental health tier system, and 24 unique individuals identified as Tier 4. For some of our healthcare waiting appointment times, for sick call requests related to medical concerns, 29 are currently waiting with a wait time of 12 days. Sick calls for mental health have 10 currently waiting with the longest waiting 2 days. Psychiatry has 189 with the longest waiting 30 days, and mental health specialists have 7 waiting with the longest waiting 4 days. I'd like to update the board that our COVID-19 mitigation efforts have been successful in addressing the surge experienced in our community over the past month. We were able to immediately contain disease spread throughout the facility, and I'm happy to report as of today we are only at 2 cases. And that's it for me this evening.
Any questions? Controller O'Connor.
Oh, yes. So live stream is up and running now, so if everyone wants to wave and smile, yeah. Just a couple things. Obviously, new role. I'm sure going to meet with all of us. There's some just outstanding things that I know we've been working on. So, in your new role, please keep an open mind. I think a lot of people have good ideas on this board, and I think with you coming at a different perspective, we've been trying to do a notification policy, things like that can just move the needle a little bit, I think will be very helpful for a lot of people. Just a couple things I wanted to ask some questions. On the language access, I know our office has been working on that in intake and in discharge. I know we've had some communication. I think we might have a follow-up, but a question came up the other day that the services, obviously, when you first come in, and we have an outside agency that you can call for it. We just wanted to see where that stands, how's it going, are they 24 hours again? This was a question, I know you were working with my office, I just didn't know if there was a follow-up to that.
So in intake, we have the DTT machines that allow for calling to a service that has multiple individuals who speak different languages, as well as we have hard of hearing services. So all those resources are available in intake. We also have those same resources available in the clinic, as well as in our video arraignment in case those are needed as part of those engagements. And of course, the courts has their system in place as well. So those are locations that their services are available. We also have those features available on the tablets to the extent I can't speak to at this moment. But we do also have a program on the tablets to help with those individuals that are hard of hearing. It's Purple. So when we are made aware, we make sure that those individuals have that service for them.
Okay. All right. I know that we have a follow-up coming up on that as well. And the Duquesne program, just real quick, where do they meet? And how often is there like a fall? Is it just go through that program? Yeah.
Sure, they meet every Thursday morning for
Okay.
about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and that's located in our education center.
Okay. And is there is it each semester they get new kids?
Correct.
Okay. And is there like a follow-up? Is there like a project? Is there something I'm an old educator, so it's kind of like, what is the goal? Obviously, the conversation is great to have, but is there an end goal from the Duquesne students? Do they write a report? Is there any follow-up after the fact?
I don't know what their assignments are
Okay.
from their professor. That we don't really work with them on that end.
Okay.
We work with them on the end of them working with these incarcerated individuals and gaining a better understanding about who they are, where they're from, and what they've been through.
Okay, can you get the professor's name again?
Dr. Norman Conti, Conti.
Okay. Yeah, it'd just be interesting to see like other perspectives, what the kids are working on, and then what's the follow-up after that. I think for right now, those are all my questions. I would just like to mention again the IIWF that, I know we're voting on it again this month because we have to do monthly, but we really have to talk and have a plan for funding that in the future. I think that's really important. And then also talking about the future, I know we have a new acting warden right now, but in 3 months, we're going to have new people on this board. So we also need to start looking at, I know the rules come up often, but we have to have a conversation, especially with the new board coming on, what those rules are going to be. And I don't know that we actually, and I wasn't here for this if it occurred, but do we have a subcommittee on the rules?
We do not, but we had conversations, we had draft bylaws that
No,
were presented.
I've seen the draft laws.
Yeah.
I'm just saying like that needs to happen now that new people are going to be sitting
I'll do it
here
with you.
by
I'm ready.
January. Well, I think it needs to be a conversation with everybody here who's seen things happen. I know we had a couple calls and that didn't move very quickly, but at least get the ball rolling for new people that are going to sit on this board. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
I do have a question for you,
Yeah.
actually. What are your concerns regarding the IIWF fund balance?
Oh, I mean, we put the report out, and you just see that the numbers are dwindling. So, with the numbers being so low, what's going to happen in 6 months? I mean, I have the report on our website about what's going on, but now that we see that the numbers are not as high as they were, and, you could calculate it however you want, but once that's lower, we don't have a function to do certain things as this board. So we're going to have conversations outside where we can look at maybe other sources of funding, or we have to be very careful with how we spend those funds as a board in the future. Because when that runs out, we don't have the ability, I know we talked about mattresses, other things like that. And I know there's county council funds, that's a separate conversation, but that's something that we should have a long-term conversation about where we have additional funding so that this board can possibly help more people in the future.
If I can actually respond to that, the $125 a month has been approved through the end of the year. That was kind of the goal all along, is just kind of get us through to the end of the year. We are exploring actually providing funding in the next county budget so that it does not come out of that, because my idea is that there would no longer be an IIWF because we would stop making profits off of incarcerated people, and so that fund would no longer exist, and we would actually fund these things through the county budget as it's intended. So we're getting it through the end of the year. That was kind of like the goal, and then we're going to do it the right way come January and do it through the county budget.
I wanted to ask a question regarding the Duquesne program. What are the requirements for the incarcerated individuals to participate in that program?
Typically, it's individuals who are already in our programming housing units in the jail, and we offer it to anyone that's interested can sign up. So we just put it out to those individuals on those units and allow them to sign up for
Is
it.
the expectation that they will do an entire semester? Or
Correct.
Is there a guarantee that they'll be there for the
No,
entire
sir,
semester?
there's
Okay.
not. So we will see some of those numbers dwindle throughout the class, as we do see with most of our classes.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Moss?
Well, you kind of asked some of the questions I was going to ask about the Duquesne. Did you say Norman or Norma Conti?
Norman, M-A-N.
Okay. Okay, and you say now you have 14?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And my other question was about the graduation of the cadets, because I know I wasn't here last month, but the month before, I think, how many did you say that you had that were graduating? Because I see you have now 18 new, right?
We have 18 in the cadet academy right now. Last month, I believe it was 8 that we graduated, or the last class was 8.
Was 8?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's building your numbers as far as having,
It's encouraging. Our class numbers keep increasing, and the applications as well keep coming in, so.
okay. So there was 8 that went, and you have 8 training. 8 that became cadets, and you have 18 in training. Is that correct?
8 have already graduated. That was the previous class.
Right, uh-huh.
Currently, we have 18.
You have 18 that are in training now?
Yes.
Okay. That's it. Oh, and one other question about the voter registration and who's in charge? So how are you, communicating with them? How are you communicating about, because I know the times are running out for registration, because it's in about another month we'll be voting.
Correct. So
So-
we put out information on the tablet letting all the incarcerated population know that on their housing units are the absentee ballots as well as registration forms. The caseworkers are working with those individuals to obtain those documentation so that we can get it submitted on their behalf. We will also be sending additional updates over the next month to the population, just reminding them that they can
Yeah, because that's very important, because some time ago, I started having the voter registration going on, and I noticed that because that's not really a high priority if you're incarcerated. You're not thinking about voting. And a lot of them don't understand that they can vote, because they haven't been, so I just want to make sure that everybody gets the information and they know their rights, that they can vote and they can register.
Yes, in addition to the posting that we gave them regarding the absentee ballots and the registration forms, there is a video from last year, and we reposted other videos letting them know that, what the requirements are for people to vote in a very basic education way, letting, them know that they have the right to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Terry Klein?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the jail administration for inviting Dr. Patterson's family in to see the plaque that was recognizing his service to the ACJ. So I'm very appreciative of your efforts to hang the plaque and include in what I heard was a meaningful experience for the family. So thank you. My one question is, can you please explain why people at the ACJ would be refused contact visits?
Contact visits are the visits where family members come into our contact visit room and can sit across the table. Those contact visits are held for individuals who are engaged in programming in the jail, our juvenile population, and our worker population. Contact visits are used as an incentive to hopefully increase the populations in those units and a reward for their participation in programs or in the working units of the jail.
If I can that could be a discussion, I think that would be worth having, whether holding contact visits as an incentive is the right thing. I thought I saw that there were 0 contact visits with juveniles. Did I see that right?
No, that's not correct.
Okay, that's, all right, I apologize
We
then.
had 11 juveniles get visits last month from 37 family members.
Thought I was. Okay, all right, well, good, thanks.
But the Amachi program is contact visits, right?
No, Amachi is doing the programming with the individuals in the jail, and they work with their families in the community.
Dude, yeah, but at one time, we were allowed to come in and have contact. That's no longer.
That's not currently part of the programming that they're doing in the jail.
Okay, so maybe we need to talk about that now. I know when COVID started, it's changed a lot of things, but we used to were able to come in and they could have dialogue with the children and all in a different kind of environment.
Correct. And individuals that participate in Amachi programming, like other programming, can be eligible for contact visits.
Okay.
But Amachi is not currently facilitating contact visits.
But they want to. We do want to. Okay.
Any additional questions from over here?
In the materials we have, sorry, in the materials we have under juvenile contact visits, it says 0. So I guess that was a mistake.
Yes, ma'am, that was a mistake.
Okay.
Ms. Hallam?
Thank you, Judge Halsey. Okay, I do have a few questions. First of all, it was something from a public comment. Do we do mammograms? How many have we? Oh, there you go. I got you, Gail. Do we do mammograms, and how often would you say, how many people have access to them?
It would be based on risk factor and a part of their PCP care, so I don't have numbers.
But isn't it true that like above a certain age, we're all just supposed to get them?
That's a part of, yes.
So what I'm asking is, what is that age? Does anybody know? 40? So does every person who is 40 and up get access to a mammogram if they want one?
It's discussed with them during their PCP appointments.
And offered to them as well?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have a number about like how many we do?
I'm sorry, I don't.
I would like to know that just because I think someone else really wants to know that. The next thing is the NCCHC report. What is the status of that? The one we've been waiting for?
That was a report that was requested on behalf of the county manager's office to NCCHC, so I'd have to defer to the county manager's office as to the status of that report.
We requested it also, so can you defer to us?
But it's
It's about the
contracted.
jail.
Correct, and they contracted with them, just like when NCCHU was contacted by the county manager's office for the mortality death review, they coordinated the event for NCCHC to have an executive session to present that report. So I would have to defer to the county manager's office as to the status of the report, since they were the ones who contracted with NCCHC.
Okay, so the county manager's office contracts all contracts in Allegheny County, right? That's just how our home rule charter works. So is it the position that you're taking right now that any contracts, even if all the work is done inside the jail, are outside the purview of the jail oversight board?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm
Okay.
saying that specific one was engaged by the county manager's office, whereas like the jail engages AHN for the contract for the jail for the AHN services. Though the county manager signs off on it, the contract is, or the request for service is initiated from our facility. The NCCHC intake review is, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, because that's the one that has been referenced to, was engaged by the county manager's office with NCCHC.
Okay, I will dispute what you're saying, that that is not something that we have access to, but is it completed? Has it been turned over to the county manager's office?
Again, I would have to defer to the county manager's office.
County manager's office.
You'll need to reach out to the county manager. You'll need to reach out to the county manager. She's the one who was engaged to the report.
Can you please bring her to the next meeting? Wow, okay, anyways, next question is about legal mail. So I was doing one of my inspections the other day, and somebody was showing me that he had legal mail that was sent to his tablet, and he wanted to print it out, but was being told that he couldn't do that. Like, he wanted the copies of it instead of just being able to view it on his tablet. Do we do that with all legal mail? Because I thought it was just copies and you get the paper copies.
Legal mail is delivered in person to the recipient. It's signed for. So I'm not sure what the person you were speaking with was classifying as legal mail. But legal mail does not get scanned to the tablet. They get it in hand.
Okay, because I saw it on his tablet. Like, he physically showed me his tablet that had legal mail on it that he did not have paper copies of. I'm just wondering, in what situation would that have happened?
I'd have to follow up with that individual to see what was on his tablet.
Okay, I mean, it was like a docket, like with court information on it.
It's just a docket sheet?
No, it was a whole packet. There was a docket sheet. There was like a list of facts in his case. I mean, it was like his case information was on his tablet.
Okay. So if it doesn't come from an attorney, like if it comes from a different entity, those documents are scanned because it's readily available from like the MDJ portal or whatever it is. Okay, but if it's attorney-client privileged, that is the legal mail that gets delivered and signed for to the individual.
Right, I guess then I'm not talking about attorney-client mail, I'm just talking about legal mail in general, about their case or wherever they get it from. I wasn't sure, I don't even think he knew, to be honest, where it came from.
Sure.
But, so how does he get a paper copy of that? Because I've heard from multiple people now that it used to be pretty easy to get paper copies, like to get the counselors or the COs on the pod to make copies of things, and that now that doesn't happen.
We haven't made copies as long as I've been there.
So how would he get paper copies of his legal documentation that is on his tablet?
We don't print anything off of the tablet.
Is there a reason for that?
That would have to go through, I believe, through the vendor, would it not?
To print from the tablet?
To get documents off of a tablet? yeah, we'd have to look into it.
I'll reach out to the vendor if that is the best way to go about it. It was the first I had ever heard of that, so I wanted to bring it up.
If I may, more likely than not, the documents that he showed you on his tablet were documents from the UJS portal. Attorney-client mail is delivered. He would not have his legal mail on his tablet. But if he were able to go online and search up his case on the UJS portal, that information will be there. But that's not his case, information related to his case per se. That's just the stuff that's entered into our court system, which he could always go online and view that whenever he chose to. So to print it out, I don't know why it would need to be printed out if he can view it on his docket on his computer or his tablet at his leisure.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time on the UJS portal. That's not what this was. This was mail that was sent to him, that was scanned in and put on there. It wasn't just docket sheets. It wasn't just the court summary as appears on the UJS portal. It was actually documentation from his case that was mailed to him from some entity, and it was housed only on his tablet.
It could possibly be that he took a picture of it too, and he lost the paperwork. I don't know if that's possible, but
No, he told me that the mail was mailed to him, and Beeson kind of just confirmed that that is how it works if it doesn't come from your lawyer.
right, so that's what I'm saying. If it doesn't come from his lawyer, it's not technically legal mail. That's what I'm saying.
We can argue semantics all day. I'm just asking how a person can get paper copies of legal documentation. So, but thank you. I will check into that. Thank you very much. My next question is about the law library. So I know that folks have access to the law library on their tablet for those who have tablets, but what about like legal forms that are on there that they need to adequately prepare their defense? How can they get somebody to make them copies of those legal forms from the law library?
The caseworkers have provided forms that they need. If they need to file anything legally, they can obtain it from their caseworker.
Okay, and have you ever gotten any reports, grievances filed about caseworkers refusing to print out legal forms?
It would depend on what it's for. Like Chief said, we don't make copies of everything, but if they need to file something, then we provide that to them.
Okay,
No,
and I'm
I
asking,
haven't-
have you ever
not.
gotten somebody report that that hasn't happened?
Not for legal forms, no.
Okay. I have somebody that I'm going to have reach out to because he has been trying to get legal forms printed out and his caseworker is not doing that. So I will do that. Okay. Next, I want to talk a little bit about, first of all, interim warden. Dede, I'm so excited that you're here. I mean, the relationship can only go up, right? So I do have a couple questions that are specifically about, like, just want you to know some things that we've been dealing with. I don't know if everybody like tunes into jail oversight board meetings like I do, but just to kind of follow up on, we have been, the NCCHC came in the past and basically gave some recommendations about dealing with deaths in custody, notification of family, and they put some recommendations about how the jail was not in compliance with their NCCHC standards. They did this in what they call their mortality report about the ACJ. They said, first of all, that the ACJ fails to conduct adequate mortality reviews to assess whether compliance indicators were being met or inconsistent in how they are being delivered, documented, or communicated. So I know you just got here, but in the past, we had, I don't want to call them conversations with Warden Harper because they were never that, but maybe questions towards Warden Harper about doing them, and it kind of came out that we just don't do mortality reviews. That's actually what the NCCHC reported as well. So I wanted to ask if that is on your radar and if it's something that maybe you'll look into, mortality reviews and the psychological autopsies that are actually required when there's a death by suicide, but are recommended as per NCCHC standards for any death. Is that something that you know about? Have you conducted mortality reviews in any of your previous positions, psychological autopsies, anything like that?
Yes, it's on my radar, and that and other things. I mean, as I am there at the county jail, seeing the differences between how we operate at the state and the county level, there are definitely similarities, but the differences we will be looking at and coming up with plans to remedy those.
Okay. I really look forward to that. I would hope that you would go backwards and actually do deaths that have happened prior to you getting here, especially, the 21 deaths that we've had in the past 3.5 years, because they were not completed. And I think it would maybe help you get the, accreditation, pat on the back, whatever the NCCHC gives. They would be really pumped if those were done. So I just wanted to kind of put that on your list. Another thing, I want to know about the solitary confinement report, so I'm sure somebody has told you about Chapter 205. We passed overwhelmingly by a ballot referendum here in Allegheny County to ban solitary confinement in the ACJ. And, in collaboration with people who have been in corrections, there were 3 exceptions that were listed to the solitary confinement ban, basically like times where you can actually use solitary confinement. It's actually on the tablets now, I think, too, so you can maybe even see it on there, but I do have a copy and it's pretty easy to access online. And the most important part, I would argue, of the entire ban is the reporting mechanism, so that we as the Jail Oversight Board, members of the public, can kind of hold accountable that the law is being followed. And it says that the reports are due on the 5th day of the following calendar month, and today is October 5th, and as of about 4 minutes ago when I started talking, the report was still not up on the website, and I was wondering if anybody could speak to why that's not up in clear violation of this law.
I'm sure it's coming out, Ms. Allen. We
today?
We don't send the report, so I'm sure it'll be coming out. It'll be out today, yeah.
Just after the meeting's over, even though business day is over?
We're sitting here. We can't send the report. We don't send the report.
Who does send the report?
Do you know who it goes? I think from county stats actually compiles that report and sends it out, but.
It's not actually a report that you guys compile?
We do. As has been reported to the Jail Oversight Board, we actually had DHS and county stats present to explain how that report is generated and how we get it. So it is in collaboration with the jail, and county stats assists us with that information. Once it is completed, it is uploaded to that exact process. It has to be posted to our website, and the website gets updated. To the specifics of that, I would have to consult with that department as to when things actually post, when the websites are updated.
But you do agree that the law says it must be posted by the 5th day of the month?
And today is still the 5th. So yes,
Correct.
I do agree with that.
Okay, so you're saying call you at 12:01?
Call me at 12:01.
Okay, gotcha. I will definitely do that. I'm looking forward to that one. I do have a couple questions specifically about the solitary confinement report. I know I don't have this month's to reference, but it is the same report that is required every single month. And I know we actually had a public commenter that brought up the issue of the facility-wide lockdowns. I personally talked to lawyers who were turned away. I believe it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I mean, we had kind of unfortunately even gotten acclimated to the fact that the jail is locked down, it seems, facility-wide every single weekend, which is an issue in itself. But this was like a weekday. This was just this past Monday. And so I'm wondering if we could talk about what happened this weekend specifically.
The only day I'm aware of was Friday the 29th during a 3 to 11 shift. So if it happened on other occasions, I'm not aware of it. The staffing levels on that day were depleted to the point because of mandated overtime refusals, call-offs, and then we had additional emergency medical transports going on after the 3 to 11 shift started, that when we were doing dinner reliefs on that shift, we didn't have officers in the hallway because they were relieving pod officers, so everybody could get their relief, okay? So to send an attorney up, we had nobody to monitor that to make sure that everybody was safe, okay? So that's why we didn't allow anybody in, but.
Even attorneys?
If I can't guarantee their safety, we're not gonna let them go upstairs.
So what do you think is the reason for not having enough staffing to be able to not have to lock down for no reason?
Why, as I started answering that, I
Yeah.
detailed, it was because of the amount of overtime refusals that we had, call-offs, medical runs that we already had out, additional medical
Understand that
runs.
part.
So we went down.
But I mean, isn't a jail's job to kind of prepare for those situations? Those are situations that are gonna happen at a jail.
And when it does, then that's why we have to lock down.
That's the only remedy? Has there ever been another remedy that's been attempted? Because I know even in the solitary confinement ban, it doesn't actually say anything about staffing reasons are an exception to the solitary confinement ban.
Ms. Hallam, if I don't have the bodies in the jail, I don't know what else you want us to do. We're doing everything we
Not break
can
the law.
to get officers in there. You know, we're hiring officers, sergeants, captains. I mean, we have a major's position open right now. You know, healthcare's doing a hiring push. We're trying to get the people in there, but until we do, we have to ensure the safety of everybody in that facility.
Okay, so then when you do that, it says that the facility warden shall document specific reasons why any lockdown is necessary and why less restrictive interventions are insufficient. Every effort must be made to ensure that every person has the opportunity to leave their cell for hygiene and exercise. Is that something that happens during this lockdown? Are they getting
Anytime we do a lockdown, whether it's just a pod or it's the entire facility, a lockdown report is generated, okay, and that's sent to the jail administration. It's authorized by a major deputy warden or the interim warden himself. So, and then the reasons for the lockdown is detailed on that form.
Okay, and why is that form not included with the monthly solitary confinement report?
I don't know. What's that? It's in table format? Is what?
It is a table format as to the days that indicates safety.
Not specific reasons, though. There's no report. It literally just says this day, safety.
And that's how we're reporting it.
But you can't, because the law actually says, it says the only reason you can ever do it is for safety. And then you have to document specific reasons. So safety is the category. What are the specific reasons?
And as Chief noted, it's in the lockdown report.
It is not in the, where it is mandatory required by law in the solitary confinement report ever. I look at those every single month. Specific reasons are never listed there.
Well, we'll review it.
And you'll start putting specific reasons?
I can say that we will review it, Ms. Hallam.
Okay. All right. So whenever you keep this report, is it something that is like you put into a computer? Is it something that's like written in the log book on the pod? Like, where do you actually enter the information that a facility-wide lockdown took place? How do you document it, physically document it?
That's the report I just described to you.
Right, I understand, but I'm asking how it is physically created. Is it typed into a computer? Is it written in a log book? Is it handwritten on a piece of paper?
It's a form that's fillable. So it's got, you know, date, time, areas of the jail that are affected, reason, whether the administration was notified, and then who's completing the report.
And what is the actual name of that report?
It's a lockdown report.
Okay. Okay, what about the other folks that are in segregated housing, the information that's generated for the compliance report for the Chapter 205? Is it the same thing? Is there a form that you fill out for each individual person that is in segregated housing or some form of like individual lockdown?
Are you speaking about the recreation logs that we complete?
Well, I'm just kind of wondering, right, all of the things that you have to report on the solitary confinement report, right? So you said that there was a fillable form for the facility-wide lockdowns, and they call it a lockdown report. What about for individuals? Is there also the same fillable form called a lockdown report?
No.
Or how do you document that?
If you're talking about people in restricted housing, there's a recreation log that's generated by shift, which details the person's name, DOC number, cell number, what time they came out for a shower, recreation, any other out-of-cell activities, time they came out, time they came in, and that's an Excel spreadsheet that automatically totals up the out-of-cell time, okay? The following day, those forms are then uploaded into our document retention system on base that we spoke about before. Okay, and that's where county stats personnel, they take that information, and that's how the overall report is generated.
Okay, so people at the jail are entering it into Excel, and then that goes over to county stats, and then they compile the report,
Right.
and then they also upload the report?
No, the staff at the jail upload the report to OnBase,
Right.
and then the county stats folks have access to OnBase.
Right, but from county stats, how does it get onto the website for all of us to see?
I'd have to ask them.
Do you know?
we know that it gets posted by the webmaster, so beyond that,
The webmaster, who is that?
it's a generic term referencing personnel of our Department of Technology. I can't speak specifically to it. I know that we submit things and it is then posted to the county website.
Okay, thank you. And when there's a facility-wide lockdown, who is authorized to like call for that, to implement that?
Just gotta keep this over here. It's authorized by any one of the administration members.
So what's that, major, deputy warden, warden?
Yes,
Okay. And what about when there's a pod lockdown?
the same.
Same. I mean, how does the admin become aware that there's a need for a lockdown?
Through the form, the lockdown form. So we have an on-call duty officer rotation where members of the administration are on call a week at a time. So if we have something happen where we have to lock down, that usually prompts a phone call to that individual. They authorize the lockdown, the form is completed and sent out.
Who makes that phone call to that individual? Is that the CO on the pod?
No, usually the shift commander.
Shift commander, okay. Okay. All right, next I have a couple questions about specifically how folks with substance use disorder are handled, are treated when they come in through the jail. So I have substance use disorder, I walk into, well, I don't walk into there usually, but when somebody brings me in through the Sally Port, I come into the jail. Dr. Brinkman, maybe you are the best person to ask about this. What happens? Like, what is the initial, as soon as they come in through the Sally Port, what is the initial like screening to determine if someone has substance use disorder?
Some of the questions that we ask are about their current substance use. We'll take a urinalysis, drug test, and then we'll ask them if, based on their use, they feel that they might go through any kind of withdrawal process while they're with us. That's the initial portion. And we also ask if they have any history of or currently being treated with medication-assisted treatment.
Okay. And then does the way that you respond to the answers to the question, like the process for how we treat someone who's actively using drugs, is it determined by like what kind of drug they're using? Like if they're using stimulants or opioids, or is there a different process for each different category of drugs that people are using?
If it is one that would have a risk for withdrawal, then our nursing staff are able to consult with the provider for withdrawal management. If it's something that they have historically had treatment of MAT, which could be alcohol or opiates, then they would start the process for review to go through MAT services with us.
Okay, and there are, I assume, different drugs that are given to treat withdrawal symptoms from different drugs, right?
Yes.
And so what are kind of the categories that it's in? Is it opioids and stimulants? Is there another alcohol, barbiturates?
The main medically monitored withdrawal categories would be alcohol, benzodiazepines, and opiates.
Okay. What about stimulants?
No,
Why is that?
it's not clinically indicated to go through medically monitored withdrawal.
I have seen people go through withdrawal from stimulants.
I think you would want to make sure that they're not on something else that they didn't know that they had taken also.
Sure, as with any drugs that are used before we have a safe supply. Very much don't dispute that. But what I'm asking is, do you give anything to them to help ease the transition from actively using stimulants to now not?
The 3 protocols we use are benzodiazepines, alcohol, and opiates.
Okay, so if I come in and I say, because you said you have your questions in your drug test, I come in and I say I'm using all these stimulants. I test positive in my urine for all these stimulants. Nothing will happen for me. I won't get any sort of comfort meds or anything to kind of monitor me from coming down from those?
If there's no positive result from one of the 3 that I mentioned, then no.
Wow, okay. Okay, my next question is about the MOUD. I love those methadone numbers. You know, I'm like really excited about that, so I will say thank you for that. What about induction? Where are we in that? Suboxone, Sublocade, methadone?
We've been trying to get through the final stages of preparing for induction, so that includes final staffing recruitment, as well as working with the community agencies so that they would be prepared to receive those patients when they are released, because we would anticipate those numbers would dramatically increase.
Yeah.
And that the community providers would need to be prepared to receive that many patients.
Sure, but when you say final stages, how close do you think we are? Like, end of the year?
That would be my hope.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Also, when someone, let's say they don't get MOUD, they come in and they're not on that. They go through intake, you do your screening, you give them whatever their comfort med's on, and then they go upstairs to a specific pod. Is that everyone who screens positive for using drugs? Is that only people who exhibit withdrawal symptoms or that you predict will exhibit withdrawal symptoms, or is it everyone who tests positive for a substance?
No, it's not everybody who tests positive. Once they test positive, we are looking at monitoring them to see if they're going to go through withdrawal, and a part of that monitoring is clinical withdrawal scales. So it would be based on their assessments during that process.
Okay.
So it's only those who end up clinically going through clinical withdrawal that move into the area for detox housing.
And I know the INs score withdrawal, right? And is that based off self-reporting? Is it based off of what the medical professionals see as their level of withdrawal symptoms?
It's both. It's a clinically validated tool that we use for each of those three.
Are there ever people going through withdrawal in general population?
There should never be, not that I know of.
So they will stay in the detox pod until all of their withdrawal symptoms are gone?
Yeah, they wouldn't be cleared until their detoxification process has been cleared from the provider or the nurse who consulted with the provider.
And is that cleared to 0, or are we saying we get it down to 5 and we clear them to go?
I couldn't speak to that detail.
Okay, and then when they go up to that detox pod, is there anybody else that's housed on that pod beside people who are going through detox?
There could be other people on the pod, yes.
Okay, and what would be reasons that they were there? Medical reasons, or?
They start on the intake pod, which is pre-classification, so that the rest of the people on that pod are likely haven't been classified, and they're still going through that process.
Okay. And then are there specific or specialized medical staff on that floor, on that pod, that aren't on other pods because it's the detox pod?
Not 24/7, but there are specialized people who round there.
Okay, they round there, but they're not actually stationed on that pod even during 7 to 3, 3 to 11 shifts?
Correct, they're not stationed there, they're going throughout because we have patients throughout the building.
Okay, and then what about when somebody does overdose? What is the specific procedure for dealing with that?
Well, there would be a code called for the emergency team to respond to them to, if there's anything close to a suspicion that this could be drug-related, then all staff have been trained on the utilization and administration of Narcan. And then they continue the medical assessment, and from there, they would still be sent out to the hospital.
And so I'm sure that you know that, again, because we do not have a safe supply in this country, there's a lot of xylazine and other drugs that are not opioids and therefore do not respond to Narcan. With the fact that I saw some stat about an astronomical percentage of the heroin that is here right now is actually not even heroin or even fentanyl anymore, but has xylazine in it. And so you might be reversing the opioid aspect, but the xylazine. So is there anything that's being implemented to treat that with the overdose protocol?
A lot of the addiction specialists from AHN have provided a lot of education to our medical team to support that. There's not as much science as we would like behind how to respond to xylazine. So more than likely, they're going to go to the hospital anyhow to continue that monitoring.
Okay, and that's decided how? How is that decided if this person, Narcan is what we're gonna do, or we're gonna send them to the hospital?
Oh, they're going to still attempt Narcan. They're still
Right.
going to see, and a part of whether or not it's a potential for something with xylazine is that they don't respond. That's one of the few things that we do know.
The
so.
scariest part about it, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I appreciate that very much. Next, I just have a couple questions about specialty meals. I also got, and I don't know who to ask about that, but I've gotten some complaints about specialty meals, whether for religious reasons, medical reasons. Do you have a record of every single person who gets a specialty meal and what kind it is?
So there's different types of specialty meals, like you mentioned. We have religious meals, and that is governed by chaplaincy. They're the ones who engage and enter that into the OMSE system, so that that can be generated and provided to our food provider. And then the other specialty meals would be those that were based on the medical needs, and those would be registered in the tech care, the electronic health record, and all that information for that is provided to the food vendor, who then prepares those specialty meals and ensures that they're transported to those housing locations.
Okay, and how specific is it? Like, does it literally have a list of like foods they can eat, foods they cannot eat?
As far as the electronic health record, they have allergies and items like that, so it would be specific to that nature. Some of them are low sodium. Dr. Brinkman can speak more to those. In regards to the religious meals, we are contracted, I believe, for 3 specific religious meals. So they fall into one of those 3 categories for the preparation or for what is designated to them. So they would be provided based on that.
Okay, and then is there a special person in the kitchen that specifically prepares specialty meals?
A lot of our specialty, I can't speak for the medical ones, but like our kosher meals are actually pre-prepared. So they come in that manner. They're properly labeled to identify them as kosher meals, and then those are prepared by the food services program.
Okay, and then if someone is to not get a specialty meal, is there a way, like how is that rectified? Do you just say, sorry, my bad, and bring out the right meal, or they file a grievance? Is there a specific category for that?
So we attempt to resolve those matters as they occur, so that individual would have to notify the pot officer. The pot officer would notify the kitchen, and then that would be resolved in that moment if we are made aware of that situation. And then always they can file a complaint on the tablets like any other matter, and then it is looked into to see if they were actually due to receive a specialty meal, and then we work with the food vendor to resolve that.
Okay. Thank you. I only have a couple more, I promise. Okay. My next question is about the tablets. I know that in the tablet contract, it says that there have to be 1,100 tablets operational or there is a daily fine. And is that an actual number? Like, do you have a count every day of how many are operational? How many times have we, if you have the number, that would be really awesome, but how many times have we not had 1,100 tablets operational at once?
I don't have that information in front of me, Ms. Hallam, so I can't speak to it at this moment.
Okay, but is it something that you keep track of? How many total tablets do we have in operation?
We can look into it. We can look into it with the vendor.
Okay, I was just wondering how you keep track of that reporting mechanism, since it is very explicitly in the contract that there is to be a daily fine against the vendor. I mean, we could be saving taxpayers tons of money because I know they're not in compliance.
Okay. And as I stated, Ms. Allen, we will look into the records.
Okay, yeah, I would really like that, and if we could maybe make that a thing going forward, how many tablets are operational as in maybe the warden's report or something like that, just so we can keep them accountable. I know Controller O'Connor gets really excited about that stuff, so he would probably love that number as well. Yeah.
I love getting money back. Yeah,
I know you do. That's why I thought you'd like that. Okay, and then my next question is about the educational classes that you were talking about. Is there a limit to how many people can be in each class?
Yes, and it depends on the class. So some classes are smaller, at 10 or 15 people, and some classes can be larger, 20 to 25.
Sure, do you think that maybe we could get a list? Like, it doesn't have to be in the next meeting. You can just email it, a list of the classes and what the limits are for each one?
Okay.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you. And then I know that I have heard from some people who are really interested in bringing, like organizations wanted to bring like educational classes and writing workshops into the jail. So who is the person to get in contact with?
That would be me.
That would be you. And then what is the process? Like if someone reaches out and is like, hey, I want to bring this class in,
You can email me, call me, we would discuss what the class is, what their vision for it is, what the frequency is, if we have classroom space available for it. There's a variety of conversation that we have around those, but they can certainly reach out to me and we can make it happen.
Awesome, thank you. And then just one final question. I know a public commenter was talking about her son who was actually being denied visits right now because of something that happened in a previous period of incarceration. Can we talk about like what is a policy that would preclude from someone from every time they come to jail, they are not allowed to get visits?
There's no policy or procedure that would preclude somebody from visits based on a prior incarceration.
Okay, so you are never punished now for something that you did like last time you were in jail?
Right.
Okay, in any category of punishment?
No.
Okay, and some of the reasons why people would not be allowed to get visits?
Typically, the biggest frustration we see are individuals housed on Pod 8E on a restricted housing unit. Okay, so there's only so much time, and there's only 2 visiting booths there, so they fill up quickly. So if you don't get your name in, then you obviously don't get a visit for that week. So that's the biggest hurdle that we see.
That's really what it is, okay. I think I'm good. Thank you. Thank you all.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you very much. That being said, there will not be a subcommittee, IIWF subcommittee report. Judge Lazare is not here. I don't know if you are prepared to read her stats. I don't have them.
No.
All right, so unfortunately, we won't have the ACJ and alternative housing population statistics as well because Judge Lazare is not here. Apologize for that inconvenience. She had a family event that she could not miss. With that being said, Ms. Hallam, you have a motion regarding the incarcerated individuals dress code?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Judge Halsey. So I would like to make a motion to establish the following modification to the Allegheny County Jail incarcerated individual dress code to be effective as soon as possible before February 1st, 2024. All incarcerated adults shall be dressed in tan uniforms. All incarcerated juveniles shall be dressed in yellow uniforms, and all other incarcerated individuals who wear a uniform color different than the general population of the jail, such as incarcerated workers and those on DHU status, shall maintain their existing dress code. So I'd like to make a motion to approve and ask for a second.
Second discussion.
Okay.
Discussion? Yes.
Did we get, so I know we looked at invoice. Do we have numbers? Just, I mean, I know we want to do this, I'm fine with it, I got no problem, but like, what is the number to make the switch? So we've only looked back at like an invoice of what that would be. Is it, and also how do you order? I just have these technical, like, is it in bulk? Obviously you would be if you have to do this all at once, but what's our typical ordering process?
So please correct me if I'm not answering your question. So every year, we spend about $50,000 to replenish our inventory as far as for items that are damaged, to make sure we have the appropriate amount on site. In order to replace our entire inventory, that's not this, including the entire population and what they have in their possession, and then what we have in the laundry room and intake, and then our bulk inventory would range, depending on the sizes we purchase, anywhere from about $300,000 to $1 million, based on, again, the size of what we would need and the replacement of those.
And that money is already well,
No,
shouldn't say
because
it's
we
already
only put-
calculated. Your annual budget, well, we'll know what your budget is next week during the presentation. But so you're saying, proposed budget, sorry. So you're saying it's roughly, let's say low is 300, and it would still come from a same vendor in theory?
Not, no, because we would have to engage our vendors. Do they have that amount in stock to be able to that? Do they have that color in stock? So when we put out, and I would have to go back because I am not well versed in the RFP that was put out or the bid that was put out for the uniforms originally, is that covered in there for that quantity amount, or the expectation that that vendor would supply? So that would be my first question. Could the vendor support this in the time frame
vendor for
specified?
okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I do have a question. How you're saying that would be between $300,000 and $1 million?
Yes.
To replace the entire uniforms for the incarcerated individuals?
Yes, what we have in inventory currently and what we have out in the population.
Has anyone had a conversation with anyone in the jail regarding best practices and the reason why red was ever chosen in the first place?
No, not to my knowledge. I would have to defer to acting warden or Chief Beeson on that matter if they were reached out to.
Are there any issues with best practices? I mean, is there I mean, I know that Brian Englert is interested in changing the officers' uniforms to tan. Does that create a problem if the incarcerated individuals are wearing tan uniforms as well?
I would imagine it would present a security problem if you have both staff and inmates in tan.
The proposed motion does not put corrections officers' uniform in tan. I don't know why I said that. It's navy blue.
All right.
Yeah, so on purpose, so that there would be no confusion.
I thought there was discussion in there about tan shirts.
No, ID and records, I don't, yeah, the tan pants.
Yeah, well, they're still tan. What were you saying, Interim Warden?
No, I wouldn't have any other comment on it. I don't know why you would want to spend $300,000 to $1 million to change the uniforms when there's probably other areas that you could spend that money.
So, I'm glad, if I can say something about this, because I've been working on this for some time. I actually got a commitment from a majority of county council members who committed to making sure that this is in the 2024 budget and allocation. We reached out to the controller's office, and they are compiling the numbers to get an actual estimate, because that $300,000 to $1 million is a huge gap, so we're trying to get a more accurate look at the number. And as we go through the budget process over the next month or so, we actually have a commitment to fund it. That was the reason, as I was making calls around to some of the members of the board, that the implementation date is February 1st of 2024, so that one, we could either do a phased rollout, or also we could make sure that there was funding allocated in the budget that will take effect in January, and make sure it's done before then anyways.
So then what you're saying is it would be part of the budget, so taxpayers will pay for the new, I just want to make sure I'm clear, taxpayers will pay for the new uniforms. Is that your position?
Absolutely.
And Controller O'Connor? Is there anything as the county's watchdog, financial watchdog? Are there any issues associated with that?
The county council, I think, reached out this afternoon for numbers. I mean, I don't have them on me right now. The only thing that I saw was an invoice from April. So, I mean, I'd have to pick that number. I don't know what the number is off the top of my head.
That wasn't my question.
So, I mean, if you want us to look at, well, I mean, the budget is ultimately county council's purview.
Sure.
So, but, I mean, if we're talking about doing this, if we have till February, if we want to get numbers and they're going to do it in the budget, maybe it's, can we hold and get actual numbers that I don't have those right now.
Actually,
Excuse me. My question was, do you think $300,000, an expenditure of $300,000 in light of all the other issues in the jail, would be a wise usage of the resources?
Well,
Judge Halsey.
that's a different conversation. So for me, my job isn't to dictate where the money goes. I mean, can I have an opinion on it? Yes, obviously.
one?
But the council is going to present their budget. The executive does it on Tuesday. So it will be passed within the next month. So our purview from our office is to make sure that if that tax dollars, if council or the executive or whoever does it says that 300,000 is the right idea, my job is just to make sure that, one, that number's correct,
Right.
but then also to make sure that they're spending it properly.
Yep.
So I don't technically have a say in the budget at all. You know, is there a lot of money? Is there a lot we can do with $1 million at the jail? Yeah, I'm sure we can have that conversation too.
Right.
But the conversation that we're having right now would be to look at what that number is. They're telling us that number, and that could be absolutely right. I don't know what that number is.
Right.
So if we want to see what county council ends up passing, you know, I think then it goes to the conversation that this board at that point would just be doing a recommendation, almost like a will of council, because we wouldn't have control over that fund. That would be county council saying, this is where your funding's going. So if the conversation here is, would it be nice to change the uniforms, obviously talking to the acting warden, that's a policy conversation. The funding conversation has to be county council, not this board in theory.
Right, and I don't think there's any price we can put on improving the culture at the jail.
No.
All of the studies and the public speakers talked about tonight, making it safer, making it healthier for people to be in the jail if they're not this like bright, negative red.
So what it would actually be would be, does council take, like we as a board, I mean, this is just basically a motion, but we don't have any money. So what we would do is just have the conversation now, county council approves it. So if anything, I would hold the motion.
No, I need to pass this before we get into budget conversations next month.
Well, so here, this would be a processing question then for me. So if county council doesn't pass it, this motion doesn't matter because county council doesn't put
Correct.
the money away.
Correct.
Right, so what I'm saying is, the motion we don't actually need if county council is going to pass it.
We do actually, because the Jail Oversight Board has the statutory authority over the operations of the jail. So county council, I talked it over with the clerk, I talked to our solicitor. The county council actually needs the Jail Oversight Board to do this first, and then we are bound by your decision as the operations director of the jail.
But if you don't set money aside at county council to do this, the motion doesn't
This would
matter.
be- no,
why
that's not true.
It,
We can tell the jail, like, for example.
No, we can tell the jail what to do, I understand that, but
Uh-huh.
all I'm saying is a processing, if there's no money, then the motion, we don't have money as a board. So if county council
We're
is
also
going
going to do that,
it-
by the way. We're going to
Well-
give the Jail Oversight Board a budget.
And that's why I mentioned the fund earlier.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, I don't know whether that number that they just told us is right or wrong. I think if we're going to council next week anyways, it would be better to have a general ballpark number that's more correct for you to present it to council members.
So I will-
Because
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, I agree. I think board members, we've talked about colors. If it's going to make a difference, it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying a processing thing, this might be a better motion after the budget goes through, or if county council, we can provide them with direct number so you can make a line item motion. That's
Well,
all I'm
that's-
saying is,
Well-
I don't know that this is more a glorified will of council at the moment until there's funding.
I
That's how I'm-
dispute that. I actually believe that our authority could bind even a non-allocation because of our statutory authority here on this board. So I would, as a professional courtesy, I know I've talked to numerous of you, a majority of you who expressed support for this. I would ask that we pass it. If you're worried about council's role, me and President Katina got that covered. So I would just ask that we move forward with it. The timeline is needed in order to implement this. And again, we will have the exact numbers and talk to the contractor to make, the vendor who provides the uniforms to make sure that we put it in. But Controller O'Connor, I'm sure you're aware too, the jail is over budgeted by $10 million every single year, especially with their rampant short staffing. So funding, please don't make that an issue here, I promise.
What,
That's
no,
not what it's
I mean,
about.
I was asked the question. I'm just saying, I don't know whether that number is correct. I don't,
Correct.
I can go look at it.
What I'm saying
and
is
that-
it's kind of irrelevant for this thing. County council does the budgeting, the jail oversight board does the operations of the administration in the jail.
May I say something? Since this is discussion, the number is not irrelevant. It's not irrelevant because there's a cost.
I didn't say it was irrelevant.
I'm saying
I didn't say it was.
the number is not irrelevant because there's a cost associated with replacing the uniforms. So to suggest that the money doesn't matter, that's not a fair statement. And you can't obligate taxpayers to pay for something just because you think it's a good idea. The other thing I want to say is, just so everyone's aware, the fund balance for the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund is decreasing, and there's not enough money in there to cover the rest of the year. So would you rather buy uniforms, or would you rather give the incarcerated individuals?
We don't have to pick, Judge
I
Halsey.
did not cut you off. Don't cut.
You cut me off like 6 times. I'm not going to get into
Would
that.
you rather have the money go to the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund, or would you rather $300,000 to $1 million be spent on uniforms? All I'm saying
We
is
can have both.
more information needs to be gathered. The numbers need to be known. You can't just vote and say yes when no one has any idea what the expenditure will cost. That is my point for the discussion.
I appreciate your opinion. I would like to motion to call the question and ask for a second.
Can I just add to the discussion? I would say if there is science that says color makes a difference, color changes how people react, that could be less medical. You know, you're talking about taxpayer money. If people at the jail don't have constant stress from heart rate, then that's going to reflect, I would guess, lower medical care costs and lower taxpayer. So,
Yeah, and Ms. Klein, I actually was going to suggest that once this is implemented, we actually do collect that data, see if if use of force had to go down, if disciplinary actions went down, I would actually like to collect that data to see, look at this impact we had and maybe use it as a model. Allegheny County is always leading the way. I thought that would be a great way for us to show for other institutions who have implemented this. We've learned from them. Maybe we can help learn from
And
the
what
county
if the
institutions.
numbers don't go up? Then will you come back and say there was probably a poor usage of the resources? Would you say that later?
I don't want to speak to what I would do when I'm not in that
That's the point.
situation.
No one knows. But if it impacts the behavior,
Why are you guys against this so hard?
it's a good thing. The point is, how can we, as responsible board members, vote for something that we don't know how much it's going to cost, what the expenditure will cost, what the impact will be? We're just going to vote and figure it out later. That's what we're being asked to
Well, I
do.
have something.
Vote and figure it out later.
Can I say something? As far as the uniforms and the color, I never figured out why red was ever there from the first place. It's something that I was never for. But I believe we need more information. I'm not saying that I don't go for changing the colors, because I do. But we need some information. It's like you're voting on something blind to me.
Why didn't you express that earlier when we talked about
Because
this?
I didn't understand, I just heard all these numbers. See, I asked you
You're calling all the
that, didn't
board
I?
members?
I call everybody because
Yes,
I
you
do my
did.
job.
And didn't I ask you about, I said, what about cost?
Absolutely, and I reassured you that we would make sure that the cost is taken care of, and that is
But how can you reassure it? That's what I want.
because I have a commitment from a majority of county council to ensure that both the jail oversight board has its own line item for the 2024 budget, but also that the appropriate allocation, which is why in preparation for our budget process, which starts on Tuesday, our staff reached out to the controller's office to make sure we know the exact number. We will have that, and we will allocate for it. What the council is waiting for is us to approve this motion, and I would respectfully, in a professional courtesy, ask if we could start that process tonight so that we as council can do our budgetary job and move forward. That's all. I would ask it as a favor, that we could push it forward.
So if it comes to $1 million, this is going to be covered.
Yeah, and so what we would end up doing is if it comes to $1 million, is we would actually lower the allocation to the jail oversight board to make sure that there's a funding allocation specifically in the jail's budget for a line item that we create for uniforms.
This is what county council will do, you're saying?
County council will do this. I have a commitment from at least 8 votes.
Taxpayers will do. Taxpayers,
Yes, I have a commitment from at least 8 votes. I would.
you don't
Thank
have
you.
that information. How can you-
So again, I would like to motion to call the question, please. Ask for a second so we can take a vote on this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Second.
Well, Ida,
Is that a second from Terry
Sorry, we
Klein?
got a motion in a second. Thanks.
Second.
well, I was going to say, is there a way to, and we're just spitballing here, is there a way to rephrase the motion?
I would take a friendly amendment depending what it says.
That's why, and I'm just looking at it right now. I mean,
Although
you
we
know,
did just motion in second to call the question, but I would take a friendly amendment.
I'm just thinking, just because these are, all, if these numbers are correct, that's a lot of money, but county council can cover it. Is there a way to say something and just follow
Pending
this
a
out?
budgetary allocation from county council?
Pending something from
Gotcha.
county council, or, and I don't know if that's the right way to phrase this motion. We're just saying it right here.
I would propose motion to establish the following modification to the Allegheny County Jail incarcerated individual dress code to be effective as soon as possible before February 1st, 2024, pending,
We don't want.
excuse me,
That's why.
pending budgetary allocation from county council. I'd be willing to accept that friendly amendment.
And no one has talked, just if I may jump in, there was a break in the action, excuse me. No one has even spoken with the jail as to how this impacts their day-to-day. There's been no research done, there's been no communication with anyone other.
Excuse me,
No,
speak for
excuse me.
yourself.
I'm talking.
You're talking about me.
No one, I'm not talking about you.
Because I have had conversations.
No one has spoken with the jail administration regarding whether or not this makes sense, why. There's been no conversation, and it's a motion you want, and so it has to be done today because it works for you.
Because I put it on the agenda in the proper
Let
procedure to
me
be voted on
finish
today, Judge Halsey.
speaking.
We're trying to start off
Let
on a
me
new
finish
foot here.
No, we're
Please
not.
don't do
No,
this.
we're not. Let me finish speaking. What I was saying was no one has spoken with the jail, so how do we even know if it works for them, if it makes sense for them? We don't know what it costs. We don't know if the jail's in agreement. Maybe it does make sense, but shouldn't there be some more research done and some more conversation regarding the issue?
I had a question about it.
You're good? I just want to make sure that we're having a collaborative conversation.
We are. We're
Darren asked the question.
I'm trying to.
Can't make
I'm
this
trying to
stuff
reword a motion here as we sit here. Just,
I'm very down, Corey, go ahead.
I know, that's what I'm trying to do. I don't know how to write it right now. I mean, I've done these before, but
Did you like what I said about an adding pending budgetary approval from council? If that's the hangup, then we can definitely have that.
but I think you're also looking at dates. You know, I agree with you. This, and Terry did a tour in New Hampshire, so I don't think we have the votes right now. Let me just be honest on that. But what I'm saying is, what would be the harm in council doing it? You have to set a different date because we don't know when these things are ordered. Like, I don't know if that number's right.
Would you be happy with by the end of 2024, giving a whole year?
Well, but I don't know I don't know what their ordering process is. How long does it take to get in bulk? I mean, we're just,
Since
we're sort of
since we
throwing
are
this all out
only
there.
made aware of this when it hit the agenda, we haven't, you know, I don't have those answers.
That's a vendor question. I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't take a year. I get that.
Well, that's why I also put to be effective as soon as possible, because if it took them a little while, then we would be able to do that. Or we can put as soon as the vendor is able to fulfill the request. I'd be open to that amendment as well.
You don't even
Judge
know if the
Halsey,
vendor-
please.
You don't even know if the vendor can fulfill the
Well, if they can't, then we need a new vendor.
This is ridiculous.
The comprehensive fiscal plan has to be presented 75 days before the end of the year. It is being presented this coming Tuesday. Then we have our public hearings right after that. Then you get to come and present. Yes.
All the things that the jail needs. All the
Corey, are you going to vote for this or are you going to vote against it? Because I would very much like to take your friendly amendment, but if you're not, please do not blow smoke up my behind.
No,
I would
I'm
like to
not.
move forward.
Here I am, so I'm giving you the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did it November, the budget would still be open, because then you'd know if council actually is moving forward on this. Because from what I'm gathering, everybody else up here, I mean, we all have questions about if that number's right or wrong. So why not research if that number's right or wrong? We come back and have this November, what would the date be, 3rd, 4th? You would at least know what the number is. You'd still be in budget season to make the amendment. I think members
Our
of, I think
process
members
starts
of
on
the board.
Tuesday, and I cannot move forward with our process, which is a very short time frame. It is not the same as the city council timeline for budgetary season.
I know that.
So we have a very short window for which we have to create our budget or create amendments to the county executive's proposed budget. The timing of this was very intentional.
Second.
The timing of this was very intentional. I would again ask as a professional courtesy that we could move forward with approving this amendment so that county council can do what we need to do to make sure the funding is allocated properly. But again, I would like to, if there's any cause for concern about the money, I would like to remind everybody that the jail is over budgeted by $10 million every year. Money is zero concern here. I believe it's being brought up in a bad faith argument, and I would really like to move forward with this. So again, do you want to offer a friendly amendment? Because I will take, especially the one that says pending budgetary approval of county council, because I do believe that would cause some people to not be concerned about it. So if you would like to offer that, I'll accept it.
I'm just trying to think how you would.
I would put it after,
I know what you're saying. I'm just looking at the authority of this to happen. I mean, it's more a process thing.
the authority of the jail oversight board to do this?
No, if county council doesn't do it,
Then it would be nothing, because it would say pending budgetary allocation by county council. So if county council does not authorize it in the budget, then this would be moot. Because the approval would be dependent upon the budgetary allocation.
I'm sorry, I'm just thinking it through here. If anybody else has anything else they'd like to add, that's fine.
So did you write it?
So before I call the question,
I'm just trying to think how that would actually work.
Again, I would propose pending budgetary allocation by the county council after February 1st, 2024, before the outlined changes, is how I would propose the friendly amendment.
The motion can't pass anyway. It has to be a majority of the board.
We're going to vote on it now, so the council can start a budget process, which starts on Tuesday.
So this is not going anywhere.
Yes or no, Controller O'Connor, I'm waiting on you. And then I would like to move forward.
The language is fine. I don't know if there's any other members, if you have enough votes.
I do. I have talked to 5 people who are sitting up here right now. I've gotten confirmation that everybody but Judge Housey. Oh, did you call around and try to change minds? Is that what you're shaking your head at me? Because I have talked to Sheriff Kraus.
For the record, I never said I'm in support of this. I had very strong concerns about cost and logistics, if you remember.
I very much remember, and that's not what you said. But anyways, aside from that, Ms. Moss was in support of it. Ms. Klein was in support of it. Controller O'Connor was in support of it. Sure, of course. That's why we're going to do pending budgetary allocation.
Agree with the change in the
If we don't get the money, then we will not do it. Is that cool? That's what the proposed amendment would say. So I do have 4 out of 6 members of the board.
If you need the majority of the board, you need 5.
I absolutely do not.
You need to read the code. Yeah, actually, absolutely you do. You need 5 votes. It's the truth. I don't make the rules.
Okay, so anyways, I would like
to.
to accept the friendly amendment so that we can make a vote, because I know that I need a majority of the members in attendance.
That's not what the code says.
Well, what is the code?
The code says you need 5. You need a majority of the board, 5 of 9. Need a
not what it
majority.
says.
If I just may, we sat here tonight and heard a lot of discussion about being more harmonious, getting off on the right foot.
Exactly, so
But
let's
yet
do that.
we have had no conversation with the jail administration. There's been no study. I'm sure many jails, prisons, all wear different colors for whatever reasons. I didn't understand what the rush was. I guess now I do, but I think we're being disingenuous. We asked the warden to, let's all get off on the right foot. Let's forget the past. Let's start new things. And here we are, without ever discussing anything with him. The man's been here a week, without discussing anything else with anybody else on the administration. We want to hurry up, and we have to do this. I just think that we definitely don't have enough information to vote on this. I don't believe it's what's in the purview of this board to authorize the spending of any dollars outside the incarcerated individual welfare fund, but.
Okay, again, so I will
Controller
offer,
O'Connor mentioned that. He even said it would be like a sense of counsel, and I do agree with him. We cannot bind anybody to do anything, spending money outside of the incarcerated individuals welfare fund. If the county council does whatever they're going to do with their budget, but again, that's outside of all this. We can't vote to bind the county council to do anything. We as a board can only vote to spend dollars in the incarcerated individual welfare fund.
okay, so then I will
don't
offer the
understand,
amendment.
Again, the hurry. Why can't we talk to the jail administration? That's what we said we wanted to do. Let's be more harmonious. Let's be more open.
Oh, my
Let's all talk.
Mr. Pilarski.
You said you want to get off on a new foot.
I did, which is why I reached out to all of my colleagues who are on this board and asked for their vote and explained to them, which is why I got a majority of county council to agree to the budgetary allocation, and why I am also accepting, I'm compromising all over the place, man. It is why I am also accepting a friendly amendment that this motion be passed pending budgetary allocation by county council.
Maybe this will calm the board for now.
Sure.
So let's just, instead of, and I understand the reasoning for the colors themselves. So if there is a pending council approval, and again, I don't know why council would need it, but I don't know that. Can it be, instead of saying tan, yellow, the direct colors for right now, just because we don't have the numbers, let's just hear me out on this process. A motion to establish the following modification to the Allegheny County incarcerated individuals dress code, pending a vote from county council. So
Pending budgetary allocation.
pending budgetary, so we are not tied in because we don't know the numbers. So just, everybody hear me out. This could be the best compromise for everybody. So if county council needs this because they are going to do this, we don't know, and I've heard the people's statements that red is bad, and I get on that conversation. But as the county manager's office said, now that the money is there, then that's the conversation for the board to have to talk with the acting warden and the future executive and everything like that. So what I'm saying is, at this point, to get, I believe everybody would be okay with this, maybe I'm wrong, pending council's approval, that's one. but
Budgetary
then-
allocation.
Okay.
Well, those are
But-
two different things.
No, but I'm saying in the rest of it, cut out the color scheme for right now. Just, here's why. Because we don't know the cost. So to get the votes on the board, I'm looking to move this forward. So pending the council approval, because the council, at this point to me, just needs to say, you're going to change the colors. The council, that's what they want to hear from us to move this forward.
Yes, the council wants to hear, and we should allocate the money, yes.
Right, so what I'm saying is, the motion should just be, pending on county council's approval, there will be a dress code change at the jail. Something that simple.
Can we put something specific about removing reds, and I will accept that?
Well, what I'm saying is, that's probably right. But if we're saying there's a new warden, there's a new exec, there's everything, this motion then says to county council, when this happens, and it's now on them to get the change, they now have to go get the money.
But I can't sell them on giving the money if they don't even know what they're paying for.
Well, they're paying for a change, they're paying for a change in uniform.
Please don't interrupt Controller O'Connor. That's very disrespectful that you keep doing that.
All right,
Please, Judge Halsey.
I'm okay.
So
all
can I
all I'm
just say that
saying
we be more
is-
specific about what we're attempting to get away from so that the intent of this is still kept even while not necessarily delineating
So
maybe what
I'm
those
saying
colors are?
to the board, to move this conversation forward, pending county council, we do not get into specifics right now because we don't have that answer right now. I mean, maybe, a certain type of tan is $200,000 less. I don't know.
Sure,
You
I
don't know.
actually looked with a current vendor, and that's where I got the tan and yellow
No,
colors,
that's
because
fine.
they already
So I'm
have those
saying
for the same.
remove that, pending county council's approval. We come back, we now will have time to sit and talk about color schemes and numbers, then everything will move forward. There will be new uniforms, just not tonight or not February 1st. Maybe it will be, I don't know. But put it on council to know that the jail oversight board is having the conversation. We agreed to a change, but let's move forward. So nobody's voting on numbers
So
right
tell me what
now.
your friendly amendment says. Motion to,
Can we read that back to me, what I just said? No.
motion
So my
to change
motion
the Allegheny
would
County
be-
Jail incarcerated individual dress code.
Motion would be pending county council's budgetary approval. There will be how did I just say it?
Motion to change the dress
Motion-
code pending county council's budgetary allocation. I will
Change the
accept
dress-
that friendly amendment.
Is that, I'm
Cool.
looking for discussion here. That doesn't mean the money.
I'll accept
They have
that.
to get the money. Sheriff, I agree with your issue on the money. I don't know what that
I
number
appreciate
is.
that, Controller
But
O'Connor. I will
I'm just
accept.
saying that way, it's now up to county council, because
Great.
they have to get the money. This board does not get money. We know that. That's was my point, is we do not control funds. We control the IIWF, that's it. We are going to now send it to the tax or the oversight body of the budget. If they choose to do this, that is on county council. But now we are just saying, it's in their court. They're the ones making that decision, and we will find out what those numbers are for county council to make that decision.
Cool.
I know, that
Accept.
seems like the easiest compromise. I don't know.
Well, I have another friendly amendment.
Another one.
I
How
don't
can
know
we do two,
I don't
Terry?
know how friendly you'll find it, but maybe to
If you preface it with that, maybe not, but go ahead.
assuage some of the board hesitancy is to say, colors to be determined with conversation with jail administration.
Sure, but yeah, sure. As long as it's in there that we are changing it, I am open to conversations. I would actually I'm really excited about conversations with jail admin. I've never had him before. Maybe Beeson, he's cool. Yeah, sorry, I gave you that exception. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, okay? So yes, I will take that too. I think that's friendly enough. I know Mr. Pilarski is trying to change the controller's mind right now, but I accept his and yours. And I would like to make it for the record just clear what it's going to say. So let's just reiterate. Motion to change the Allegheny County Jail incarcerated individual dress code pending county council budgetary allocation in coordination with jail administration. Yes? I know, I wish you would stop. I'm really trying to do something here.
It would be the two of us, don't just say.
It's okay.
To the task.
So,
It was both of us, I admit it.
oh my God. Okay, so I would like to, okay, I'm going to say, motion to, in collaboration with jail administration, establish a new dress code for Allegheny County Jail incarcerated individuals pending budgetary allocation by county council. I would like to make that motion. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Can we please vote?
Any in favor?
Okay, wait, can we take a roll call vote, please?
No.
I would like a roll,
favor?
Judge Halsey, I would like a roll call vote,
Corey
please.
O'Connor, are you in favor of this?
Am I in favor of
The amended motion.
amended motion? So here's what the amended motion is doing for everybody out, for everyone that's watching. So the amended motion is going to allow this board, in collaboration with the warden, to discuss, because I know board members were okay, huh?
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I know board members were okay and open to the conversation. I know the sheriff was. I know a lot of board members were open to changing the uniform conversation. We do have a new acting warden. They should be involved in the conversation, which was in the last motion.
Yes.
So this is not, and I know this looks like we are dictating policy to the board, to oversee our authority. It's not what we're actually doing here, and we could debate that sidebar.
But it kind of is.
Oh my gosh.
It is, but it's a conversation that now they are involved with.
Okay, so let me ask you
Based-
this.
based
What
on this.
happens if the jail administration comes back?
You started roll call, Judge
What
Halsey.
happens if the jail administration comes back and says this doesn't work for them, it's not consistent with their best practices?
And that's why they are now in the motion for the
And
conversation.
what happens now?
Again, my process would have been different. But what we're saying now that we have discussed this, if they have an issue with this, because we are not locking them into it.
Right.
All we're doing, this is not a lock-in.
Well, they're here, why don't we ask them if they have an issue with it?
Because we just proposed to discuss with them at a later date, as well as get the allocation from county council. I would like to motion to please call the question.
what's the
It's
hurry?
so
Why
wild
not
that
have a
I'm
call?
not the one dragging out the meeting
Right.
tonight.
Why not have the conversation before, so you have all the information, so you could appropriately vote? What's the rush?
I'm not going to respond to that. I explained the timing.
So acting warden, the conversation, and you could be here 5 years, you could be here 2 years. We never know with this, okay? You can be here till 8 o'clock. So what is going on, and I understand the county manager, and I understand process, and we should have more detail before we do this. And in the future, all members, we should have this detail before it comes out here, because one, we're all arguing with each other when this could be a very simple thing. So in the future, we all need to do a better job of getting this information to everybody. So I apologize for that. This does not look like an organized board at all right now. So if you're watching us, we look like we are fighting, but we all agree that a change of color could be a momentum change down there. That's general.
We don't all.
Okay, okay, so more than most of us who I've spoken to agree with that conversation. So if a motion would be to pass, that, again, the money would have to come from county council. This board has nothing to do with money. So the motion now is to bring you and your team involved with a conversation with our board to discuss future colors at the jail. Because there would be, if we get to this point, and this is a big if, there has to be an allocation of funds by the governing body of the county to do this. This board, nobody on this board is putting up $300,000 to $1 million. That's not our job. Our job at this point is to have this conversation about a long-term change, and I'm just saying, if the conversation happens, if they come back in 3 months and say we're not going to do it, that's a different conversation to have. Right now, we're just trying to start a conversation about what color schemes could be used at the jail. Is there an issue with us having that discussion about a color scheme at the jail when the next time we have this discussion, there will be hopefully a sufficient number of funds, as well as there would be an actual number of what it would cost us. But that is now on county council. That doesn't fall on this board. That doesn't fall on our opinions about whether we should do this or not. We are just saying, pending that happening, you having a conversation with us about a color scheme. And these colors now are all deleted. So you can come back and say a different color could work. So is there an issue by doing that? I know that was a lot.
It's disingenuous.
Well, no,
It is disingenuous. And
Judge, I agree with you on the money, and that's not our role.
Let me finish.
I think this is at this point, this is a glorified conversation that we want to put on record that things need to change down there. That's all I'm going with. I agree with the money. I'm not trying to make a big fight about this. This is a very low-impact motion at this point.
Right.
That's all I was trying to get to, is that's what I'm doing.
Please, if I may.
Yeah.
The reason why it's disingenuous is because you're saying, we want you to be involved with the process. We want to hear what you think about this, but we're going to make a motion that you have to do this, and then the details will be worked out later. That's what you're saying. That's exactly what you're saying.
But the motion, what we're saying is, they can come back and say, we aren't doing this. We're just having the conversation about it because there has to be a change.
Consistent with general practice, you could speak with them, we could do our research, and we could have a vote after everyone makes an informed vote. That's what typically happens.
I mean, you could do it
You
multiple
yourself
ways,
said
but
that's the way it should happen.
I would like to motion to call the question, please, and ask for a second.
call this way.
Can I please have a second to call the question and take a vote? It's obvious there's certain people who are going to not agree. That's how this works. That's why we vote.
Well, that was a question. I know I'm putting you on spot. But are you open to are you open to a conversation about
I'm open to a
colors?
conversation on
That's
anything.
all this motion does at this point. It is.
That's absolutely.
It is, because they're involved, that's what the motion just said.
Then have the conversation and then do the motion. If that's what your motion does, then have the conversation and then do the motion. What would be the difference?
There is a motion and a second on the table for a vote. We took friendly amendments. I would please like to call the question and move forward with the friendly amendment, which I will reiterate for the record again, that the amended version of the motion, thanks to Ms. Klein and Controller O'Connor, says, motion to, in collaboration with jail administration and pending budgetary allocation from county council, modify the Allegheny County Jail incarcerated individual dress code. I have a motion and I have a second, and I would please like to vote on this. This is nuts. Man, people
And
think
who's all in favor? Corey O'Connor?
I mean, I'm in favor of the last motion.
but that's the only motion we're voting on right now, the amended motion as I just read.
Three votes.
Terry Klein? In favor? Sheriff Kraus?
Not enough information.
Is it no?
At this time, I'm for
So
it.
basically it said.
I'm all for it, but I mean, this feels way too rushed.
Is your answer is no?
At this time.
Gail Moss?
I'd surely like to revisit it.
Gail Moss, are you abstaining? Beth Hallam?
Oh, that's all right, I pass anyways, yes.
What's your vote?
My vote is yes.
Okay, so just so
So we
we're
win.
clear, when we talk about board.
Yeah, we got 3, and they only have 2 no's.
1732 requires all actions
She
of the board
abstained.
shall be by the approval of a majority of all the
doesn't
members
vote.
of the board.
Pilarski
Not
didn't
enough
vote.
people here to vote anyway.
I would vote no. There's not
You
enough
don't get a
information.
vote, bro.
I would disagree. There's not enough information.
Doesn't pass
I'm literally
regardless.
suing Yins over this right now, and you're still going to vote in clear violation of the law. It doesn't count, the motion carries.
No, it actually doesn't. I just read the statute to you. 1732.
You're
clear-
not reading the statute that governs this board is Title 61. It says that we shall set bylaws. We do not have bylaws. Therefore, a simple majority wins, which is a 3-2 vote with a 3-1 vote actually with 2 abstentions.
Thank you. A majority of the members of the board shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business, and all actions of the board shall be by the approval of a majority of all the members of the board. You don't have enough people to vote anyway. What's your next motion? Do you have any more motions?
Actually, I would like to say that motion passes. Are we agreeing with that? What was the
That
official
motion
tally on
doesn't
that?
pass.
3 to... Yeah, can we take a roll call real quick before we move on? I would like a roll call vote for the record because it seems that there's some confusion about voting members, non-voting members, and what constitute a simple majority. So I would like to request a roll call vote,
I
please.
just read the statute to you. Did you not hear me?
I very much heard you, but I'm not talking about the statute. I'm asking for a roll call vote, as is my right on this board.
The majority of the members of the board have to vote. Pardon me?
I'm sorry, Judge
Shut
Housey.
up, I'm sorry?
Nobody said shut up, I heard. They said do your job. So what I would like to be clear
I'm
about
just trying to make
is,
sure no one told me to shut up. No, I'm not talking, I wasn't looking at you.
oh my gosh, guys, this is why people think this is a joke. Can we please move forward with doing some work? Can we please have a roll call vote on the motion?
The motion doesn't pass. There's not enough votes.
May we have a roll call vote to determine that, please?
No, because the motion doesn't pass. I
You
just read the
literally,
statute
I'm
to you.
sorry, point of order, Judge Housey, you are
Would you like to read
This
it?
point of order, Judge
Would you like to read
Housey.
it?
I am requesting a roll call vote, as is my right as a member of this board. I am an equal member as you, and I would like to request a roll call vote on something that should not at all be controversial, but for some reason, it is getting very out of hand here, and I am trying to turn over a new leaf with a new administration. It just seems that there's some very deep-rooted disrespect here, and I would please like a roll call vote so I can move forward with the business of this board. So can we please have a roll call vote without the personal attacks, sir?
You said this
Without the personal attacks, sir.
Please.
I am trying, guys. Can
Corey
we please-
O'Connor, you voted in favor. Terry Klein voted in favor.
Let
Steve Pilarski
No vote.
voted no. Sheriff Kraus voted no.
Please let them speak.
Gail, you heard him say, this is the second time we're going through it. Gail Moss abstained, you voted yes, I vote no.
So it's 3-2 with 1 abstention. Gotcha. That is what I wanted for the record. Thank you very much. And I would like to move forward because I do have a couple questions. You know, there was an email exchange that all of these board members were on here. I am very, very concerned about the future of this board and the effectiveness of this board when one member of this board is seemingly gatekeeping things from being added onto the agenda. If I wanted to add something to agenda as any other member of the board, you are to follow the proper protocol and it will be added to the agenda. I introduced a motion in coordination with the Corrections Officers Union, who you heard from their president earlier, to add a motion to the agenda to change their dress code as well. The union voted overwhelmingly in favor of it, and yet I received an email from Judge Housey saying that he disagreed that we could do this, therefore it wouldn't even been put on the agenda for discussion.
Right.
And I want to just be very clear that I don't think any of us want to go down this path of one person being able to dictate what goes onto the agenda. As long as the proper procedure is followed, which I did, I submitted it well in advance of the meeting, long before the agenda was published. I called around to my colleagues to explain to them what it was and get support. I tried to do it exactly the right way so that there would be no argument against it. And yet I received an email, which I believe I forwarded to the other members of the board, of what the response was saying, I, Judge Housey, don't think you can do this, so therefore it won't go on the agenda.
Right.
And so I just want this board to be made aware that that interaction happened and that that should be on the agenda. And I would actually like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add that motion, which you were all received, about changing the uniforms for the staff as well. The contract, the RFP is going out at the end of this month to purchase new county uniforms, so they're happening anyways. A new vendor will be chosen, or maybe the current one will be kept, but this is also a time-sensitive issue. I do not want us to enter into a new contract and incur that additional taxpayer expense that you were just 5 minutes ago so worried about by changing it after new uniforms are bought. So, yeah, go ahead.
Do we have what do we have to do with the uniforms of the employees?
Yeah, so that's actually a really great question. So the statute that governs this jail oversight board actually says that the board's powers and duties shall include the operation and maintenance of the prison and all alternative housing facilities, the oversight of the health and safekeeping of inmates, and the confirmation of the chief executive's selection of the warden. So the operation and maintenance of the jail is very much, you know, how it's run, who's staffing it, all of
I know
that.
what that means, but I didn't know we did anything for all the time I've been around.
I know this board has not done a whole lot for, you know, but we've really been trying to change that over the past few years. And
But
so,
it did a whole lot before, because I was on there. Then there was a whole lot
okay,
of
I
things
believe
that
you.
was
I wasn't around then,
Yeah,
so
and I
maybe
was
that is
on there,
true.
But I never remember, I don't remember anything being.
If I may,
About.
if I may.
the
No, you may not. We are
employees,
discussing.
But the employees, that we have something to do with the,
Correct. They are governed by a collective bargaining agreement that dictates that specifically. Judge Housey's argument was that because there is a collective bargaining agreement that we cannot change their uniforms, and that's actually not true. The only provision, as the president of the union spoke about today, that is in there is about the staff receiving stipends for purchase of the uniforms. There is nothing about what those uniforms are. Basically, this came out of when Ms. Klein went up to Maine and was seeing how the culture is changing, where they're getting out of the officer uniforms and getting into what the guards want is the polos with the tactical pants. The Pennsylvania Department of Corrections is actually in the process of doing this right now also, so in coordination with the State Department of Corrections. This was a motion, again, that I worked really hard on, that I went through a vote with the union, that I made sure everybody was in support of, that I did in timing and coordination with when the contract was going out for bid, and Judge Housey refused to put it on the agenda. And so I'm just worried about the precedent that is set, because you might like Judge Housey now, but what if the person running the meetings is me, and you don't like me, and I could just not put any of your motions on the agenda ever? That is dangerous, and that is not how it works on county council, which is the legislative body of this county. If you put a motion on the agenda, even if your solicitor, your clerk, everybody tells you it's wildly illegal, it still goes on the agenda for discussion, consideration, and a vote. And I am very scared about the precedent that Judge Housey is setting right now by saying that he and he only has a say on what we vote on this board. And so I would like to motion to amend the agenda. Before you interrupt me, sir, I would like to motion to amend the agenda to add in the motion that I originally presented for consideration for this meeting.
I would like to respond. So first and foremost,
I'm sorry.
I sent the email that I sent
We're not
to
in
you.
discussion yet, Judge
We're in
Housey,
discussion.
please.
I sent the email to everyone on this board. However, because you've never worked with the union, you don't know anything about unions.
Do
you
not
don't know
speak for
anything
me.
About you couldn't possibly, because if you did. If there, do you need to be removed? Do you need to be removed?
Judge Housey, I have
Okay.
worked with
So
many
with
unions.
that being
I have worked
said-
with the Corrections Officers Union regularly.
Could you have her removed, please? Could you please have her removed? I am responding to an allegation she made. You need to move. Have a good evening.
It's ludicrous.
Right, I agree. And so you know, when you talk about a collective bargaining agreement, when you talk about a collective bargaining agreement, the only party that can negotiate with the union is the county. It is an unfair labor practice for anyone on this board to try to negotiate regarding an issue that is a union negotiation topic.
It is not in the
I'm not
CBA.
finished. I didn't interrupt
You
you.
interrupted
I'm
me, and I'm
interrupting.
going to interrupt you here. It
And
is not
so
in the
as a
collective bargaining
result,
agreement what their
if
uniform is.
If you look at the CBA, if you look at the county code, it is very clear the county is the only one that can negotiate with the union
We're
regarding
not
an issue.
negotiating with the union.
I
I'm
am
showing
not
union
interrupting you. I'm
support.
finished.
You have
Don't
interrupted me
interrupt
100 times in the
As a
past 5
result,
minutes.
as a result, the board cannot have any say-so about what the employees in the union wear. That is an issue for collective bargaining agreement, and they have already begun negotiation regarding this topic. They've been negotiating since January. This board has no authority to dictate what the guards in the jail will wear. And just so we know, because there is a concern about people having offline conversations and things being said, I want to read an email from Brian Englert. Officers, this email was dated one day after the email you sent regarding the motion. Officers, The Jail Oversight Board held a vote to change uniforms for officers and inmates. The vote passed 9-4 in favor. Officers will wear blue polos and BDUs. Sergeants will wear black polos, khaki BDUs. Captains, majors, deputy warden, and wardens will also be in polo shirts. It's not optional. We can grieve this down the road if it leads to safety issues. It will be effective for 2024 with a phase-in period. I filed an objection requesting we start in 2025. The poll vote among officers was 4-1 in favor of moving to polos. Inmates will now be in tan, juveniles in yellow, all other work-related colors to remain the same. I also filed an objection because red sticks out in public. An escaped inmate would be easily visible. Regardless, the vote passed. Be safe, have each other's back, hold the line, keep doing what we do best, running this jail as safe as we can, and Harper's gone. Regards, Officer Brian Englert, Unit 3 Bravo, 3-11 shift, President of the Allegheny County Prison Employee Independent Union. So it begs the question, how would he even know about a motion? How would he even know about a vote that never even occurred? And he's indicating to his employees and the union members that the vote passed, and there was never even a vote that was done.
There's not even 13 people on this board, so I have
That's
no
the
idea what
point.
your email is, but
This
I have
is-
been working with him on this for a while, so I don't know what that is or that piece of paper that you
Email
have.
From Brian Englert.
Okay, but I saw Brian Englert here tonight
The point
advocating
is-
for these things, so I have no idea why you brought up a random piece of paper when the actual person
It's not
that
random.
was
It's
here.
not random. It's an email from Brian Englert.
Okay, but what
The
does that
point is
have to
this.
do with me
The
or you?
point- Well, that is the question. What does it have to do with you?
What,
How
that
does he
is,
have this information?
how does he have
The
information
bigger
about the
issue is- and I'm done,
motions? Because I worked
it's
with
getting
him
late.
on them.
Please allow me to finish. The bigger issue
Yeah, 'cause-
is this board does not
What is he
have the
talking-
legal
Can you please
authority
clarify what you're talking about?
bind the union to wear outfits. That is something that is a part of the bargaining
It
process.
is not. It is not in the
Please allow
bargaining
me to finish.
process. It is
Please allow
not
me
in
to
the
finish.
collective, you're lying,
Please allow
though.
me to
It's
finish.
not in the collective
The
bargaining
statute is
agreement.
If I
clear.
may.
The
No, you
code
may
is
not.
clear.
You're
You
not
don't
on
know
this
anything
board,
about
and I'm
union.
trying to accomplish something. And for Jens to like sit up here and act like it's me doing this when I followed every process, every layer of respect, and this is still how it ends up. I don't want to hear anybody saying that Bethany's the reason that this board is how it is ever,
You have more union
ever
experience than
again.
anyone in this room. Could you please speak?
Ever again. I do not want to
Could you
hear
please speak
from a
about
non-member
the
of this board. I am done
Thank you.
with you.
Could you please allow me
I
to
do
speak?
not want to hear from him. He's not on this
Go
board.
ahead,
I'm
Mr.
trying.
Pilarski. Go ahead.
Terry, man.
Go ahead, Mr. Pilarski.
I just would like to say, as someone who does negotiate the contracts for the county, uniforms are something that is subject to negotiations. Some unions elect to put certain colors, like the jail medical union has, they can only wear black scrubs. The police officers have specific colors. Some unions don't elect to put specific colors, just the amount for reimbursement. But everything about the uniform is negotiable. The county is currently in negotiations with the Correctional Officers Union, has been since January of this year. One of the union's proposals is about uniforms. So it would be an unfair labor practice. They cannot negotiate with two separate entities at the same time. And Judge Housey is correct. Allegheny County is, the manager's office is the only one that per statutes can negotiate on behalf of the county with the unions.
And just so we're clear.
In contracts,
And just so we're clear. I
set
could
the floor,
care- I
not the
could
ceiling.
care less
Oh, man, you
what
care.
the guards wear in the jail. We don't have the legal authority to vote on that issue. It is part of the collective bargaining agreement.
Man.
You have a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I second.
I know, right? If I'm the most mature person up here, this is a mess, for real.